Welcome everybody to Rules and Public Policy meeting. If you want to, I think Mary Jo is the co-chair of this, but
Yes.
actually that brings me to the first thing. So Erica will not be here tonight, Miss Underwood. She's gonna really try to make it for our next meeting. She got stuck at work and she called and asked if I could run this meeting. And I said, well, of course, anything for you, dear. So that's what's going on tonight. But yeah, if somebody wouldn't mind taking the minutes.
I will let Mary Jo have the honor.
The honor. I'm going to talk super duper fast, just so you can't write anything
I'm
down.
gonna type super duper slow.
Okay, well, just stop me if you got
Fifth
anything.
If it's not broke, let's not fix it.
Yeah, there you go.
Hang on, which meeting is this?
This is Rules and Public Policy.
Okay.
All right, so the first thing on the agenda is tenant legislation. So I talked to Ms. Underwood about this because, as you guys know, City Community Development and Recreation is already kind of taken the lead on this. She let me know she put that on there as a just in case, you know, we want to talk about it tonight to kind of get the ball moving. If it's something that ever does fall into rules and public policy, I don't know if she had anything specific prepared for that. There was nothing in there for my committee meeting in a couple of Mondays. I have a few things prepared. And since it's on the on the agenda, I can go ahead and just send that out to you guys tonight, what I have prepared. And then it can kind of be a joint effort if we're allowed to do that. So I'll send it tonight as the duty of this committee, and then we can talk about it in 2 Mondays. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, well, I will make sure to send that to you guys tonight. Next thing is the parking legislation. So last time we talked about this, we talked about how we think everything's fine, it's just that it's not being enforced. That's what I recall last time we talked about it. Does anybody else remember anything or have anything they want to add?
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Yeah, actually, I'm actually very, pleased to see it on here because it is something that I have actually been talking to the chief of police about. I don't think my point is not to deal with any specific case. We have certain legislation that is either missing from the police department's ability to enforce, or it is somewhat ambiguous as to who would actually be the enforcing department. And as you all know, if code enforcement has to do it, it doesn't come with the same it doesn't come with the same severity, of course, as if the police department were issuing a citation.
So then are you saying that you want in our legislation for it to explicitly say this code, this ordinance, this whatever is to be enforced by the police department?
Well, sort of. Basically, what it would mean is that the jurisdiction would be clearly delineated, so that depending on what the infraction is, it would be under the administrative code, so that the police would be able to enforce it. Yes.
So here's what I think would be a waste of time is to go back and like point at each one. But could there be a way where we, write something, I don't know if it would be an ordinance that says all parking violations are to be dealt with through the, authority of the police department?
I honestly do not. That would have to be a legal question. I think we'd have to ask Mr. Dieters.
Okay.
But it's something that we can and probably should do.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, you're okay.
Okay.
So can I chime in real quick? So we don't know the list of items that needs to be revised?
No, there are some specific items that are in there. I did not bring them today, so.
Oh, we don't, so you know it, but we don't know it. Is that what I just heard?
I know some of them, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because this was something that in the administration, we were already taking up because we were also concerned about the enforcement of certain laws, which is something that obviously you all had talked about. So what we are doing is and actually I am going to be meeting with the heads of the departments plus the law director so that we can get that list together and bring it before council.
Gotcha. So is that something that we could expect to be ready by next month's Rules and Public Policy?
What I can let you do is after I meet with them this week, I can
Okay.
let you know. I can let you know how complex it may have to be.
Right. Because as I recall, last time we talked about this, it was pretty clear in our ordinances that these were to be taken care of by, I don't remember what the law language was. As you know, Mary Jo and I were saying, it's hard to read some of this out loud because it's so cumbersome. But it seemed to us that last time it was very clear that this was to be taken care of by the police officers. But if they're saying that it's not, and we need to make something clearer.
No, I think what I'm saying is I may actually be talking about something different than what you're explaining there. However, the whole point is I believe it would be advantageous for us to try to perhaps put all of it under one comprehensive piece of legislation.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which would include if there are, omissions or if we have to include, we would be able to put it in that, yes.
Right. But still that's not quite what I was saying. I was saying that originally when we looked at this, it was pretty obvious by the wording that that the parking and the, automotive laws should be handled under police authority. But if we need something in there, explicitly stating that word for word and no confusing law language, then if that's going to make people do their jobs, that's fine with me. Anything else? I don't want to move on from it unless everybody's gotten their 2 cents in. All right, but yeah, I think that'll definitely be helpful. If we can help them kind of understand and even help us understand. I mean, I get thrown off by a lot of this language too, so. All right, so to old business. So legislative procedure, council rules, process for committee meeting, minutes and agendas, and summer session. So for legislative procedure, let me pull out my handy dandy charter. Just kidding, let me pull it up online. Does anybody have a digital copy of the charter that they could share with me? I had it.
Like right now, or
Yeah.
Well, what I've got, I can scan to you.
No, it's okay.
down I might have.
I had a physical copy, and my papers are so disorganized. They've been on my list to organize, but I haven't done it. But I just am not sure where I put it. It's m.anderson@North College Hill.
Okay, all right, then I won't.
What do you call it? Thumbtacked it to the top of my email.
Oh, I could look at my email. Duh. I'm so smart.
But
It's called search.
Oh, just got it from Lori. Never mind.
So what section are you looking at in the charter?
So if we're looking at the legislative procedure, I feel like that also kind of has to tie around with minutes and agenda. So do you guys want to start there?
Sure. I don't care where we start.
You mean Article 3, council?
Right, I don't know if it would be there or if it would be in council rules, which is a separate document.
So what, I guess the bigger question is, what are you trying to get at? What do you consider legislative procedure?
So how I took this, and I could be totally wrong, but I thought we were trying to figure out what is the proper way to go about presenting a piece of legislation, who it gets assigned to, all that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, the minutes and agendas, because I know that that's been an issue for a long time of, what's the procedure.
Are you looking at council rules or charter? Because that's council rules. what you're
Right.
Talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I'm looking at. That's what I just said. I don't know if it would be in council rules or charter, but it sounds like a council rules thing.
Table of contents. Making laws.
So, kind of to go into what you just said, I did present, I don't know if you were there, at this last meeting, this last committee meeting, that document that kind of outlines how we could ask administration to present.
Oh, yeah.
That it's like a supplemental document that could go with legislation that would
Yes,
pretty much answer all of our questions.
that's probably what this legislative procedure is.
I mean, I don't know if
Okay,
anyone,
because I flipped back and forth so many times. So what are you reading from the charter?
I'm not reading anything right now. I was just
Okay.
listening to Mary Jo. But I did just see that's interesting. This is nothing to do with what we're talking about. But under city community
I think
development.
it is that, because that's where we talked about it at, and she had talked about, actually, she passed it around for us. I think that's the only thing that's gonna be, I don't remember anything else. Not that, I mean, what was it?
Yeah, that's what I think it is too. So then let's discuss that first. So you had sent out to us, Mary Jo.
No, she would just send the template to the administrative office, correct? And then they would send the template, they would fill it out.
Right, but sorry, what I meant is you had sent to us the example one, right? That we were to look over and then talk about it?
Yep.
Okay.
so I guess that as far as this committee's concerned, we need to decide if we do want to adopt that as part of the process or not.
Right.
And then if we do, or if there's a better, I'm not saying that has to be that, or maybe we need to, I know we need to make modifications to it. So whatever modifications need to be made. Now I'm trying to find it.
I know, so am I.
Anybody remember the subject line?
I was,
Or the,
We're not anywhere.
We're
in
not
the-
either.
In
We're-
an email that I had sent to council.
oh, okay, I'll check my email. Gotcha.
found it. I'll resend it to everybody.
Just tell me the
the-
subject line.
Yeah, the subject is staff report, staff report template.
Okay,
I'll need any more email.
right, me neither.
When did you send the email, Mary Jo?
On the 24th.
Do you want me to resend it to you, Lori?
24.
Do you want me to resend it to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
These Mosby, Treehouse,
Oh, you deleted her email?
Miller Nova,
I sent it at 7:11.
Gina Marsh.
All right, I just resent it to you.
Three I see one.
I just resent it to you.
And then I saw
Maybe
the
I
one
did.
about
I don't know what time I sent it. I lied.
St. Patrick's Day t-shirts. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and print this off and take notes on it about what we like and what we don't like. Is that okay with
That's
everybody?
perfect.
Okay. Let me find print. Oh, I'm so used to working on Google. I never know. Ready?
Here, you want me to print it?
Nope, I think I got it. Thank you though.
I missed this one.
So what is it you're actually looking for?
It's an email that I sent to,
Okay, because I don't have my phone or my computer.
Okay, I'll print another one.
I think I printed it too, so there should be two. Or you could just make a copy.
You gonna get your computer back?
I've got it back, it's just that I came home and flew back out the door again and just packed lightly. Because I didn't think I needed my computer. And my phone is probably in my car, or who knows? I'm not too concerned right now. I have a watch. They can still contact me, I have a watch.
Do I have to take?
Thank you.
You're gonna keep the notes of what we're doing with that?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So what do we like? What do we not like? I feel like we should probably change the city name to North College Hill.
Oh,
That's my 2 cents. Anybody else?
and the report too, and the report from.
So I like the report to and report from.
I'm talking about the Nate.
Oh, no. I got the joke. I just was also saying in addition to, I do like those.
Okay.
And people say I'm stupid.
Oh,
Right.
only
Who
because you have a
says
college
that?
education.
Just a teacher. All right.
Just a teacher.
So report to, I feel like that's important. I like the agenda item.
Yep.
So it says first reading, second reading, third reading, motion date, resolution date.
I think that can stay, I keep track of that
Right.
on the document anyhow.
I do too.
But for I was gonna say public hearing date,
Some things need to have a public hearing.
right? Like that food truck one did, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I like the strategic goals.
Actually, I don't know that we need the motion date in that. Do we?
Well, would the motion be to, like, I motion to adopt, blah, 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 blah?
Well,
But that's usually in coordination with that third reading.
yeah. Now, in my own personal notes on top of my documentation, I write, like when it says first reading, and if it says suspend, I write who's suspended, who made the motion, and who seconded. I got all that just on my document, so I don't know what that motion means.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So there are three ways that course council can take action: ordinance, resolution, and then there is a motion, so.
Oh, no, we're talking about something else. This
Correct.
is right here, so,
But what I'm saying is, you can make a motion on the floor.
right, but this wouldn't be for motions. This would be for legislation.
Okay.
Am I wrong on
And
that?
No, you're not wrong.
Okay.
And according to the charter, you can't make a motion for an ordinance. It has to be in writing.
Yeah, for example, council passed a motion, for me to withhold or to cease, for example, certain activity. That was a motion that was passed on the floor. That was what I was referring to.
Right. So I think motion date,
I
can we,
don't think it's relevant.
what was that?
I mean, I don't think we need it.
Right, I don't either. That's what I was gonna say. So first reading, second reading, third reading, resolution date keep on, or would that be the same as third reading too?
I think it'd be the same as the third reading.
So maybe we put resolution, or like voting results or something?
Well, the
Yeah.
resolution date, if it fails, it's like you're gonna have the third reading and the date would be today's date.
Right.
But if it fails, do we have a place in here that says it fails?
Right, so that's, I was saying we take out resolution date and instead put something like
Pass, fail.
voting
Fail.
results, pass, fail, and results, and like you said,
Yeah.
putting in the thing of like who voted what, and who motioned, first motion, second, or,
And
sorry,
it's just initials, I mean, you
Right.
know, AU, MJZ, you know.
right.
Yep.
So take out resolution date and instead put in,
Usually,
Pass-
I would
pass,
put,
fail,
pass/fail,
yeah.
pass, fail, and then,
voting results.
that's it, thank you.
All right,
So now I'm confused by you saying that. Because this report is what we will get before we vote on legislation.
Good point.
Why would we need to do that? Because this is an informative sheet, so that
Right.
we can kind of like look it over and preempt. Just kind of give, so there is to alleviate the discussion,
right,
not, or make the discussion more focused.
could
So
it,
that we're not talking about things that we shouldn't be talking about
right,
on the floor in a council meeting. Those things can kind of, maybe some of
Move
that
on.
can solve some of the questions or be more poignant,
right.
going back and forth with administration of some areas where it could be solved through this.
Right.
So do we need to say, yeah, that's what I
I
thought.
heard you, Matt. Could it be both?
Actually, I see where she's going with it, because we started looking at it at the end of the process, and really, this document is for the beginning of the
Right,
process.
exactly, right.
So we probably don't, we would still, like, I would still, because that's just how I do it, I would still fill that out with all the information that we talked about, but that's not something that administration will be able to fill in there.
So then would we want a section that's like for administration to fill out pre-vote, and then at the end, maybe a thing of like, and these were the results. So just kind of
Yeah.
for us to have the information before, and I know many people on council like to keep vote, and I know that we like to have kind of a place where everything is. Does that make sense? We don't have to, that's just one idea.
Yeah, we could just add another box to the,
Right?
or,
So kind of a thing up top,
I'm okay with either, we just need to make it clear what they would have to
right?
provide, so they're not feeling under pressure to do something that they or cannot do.
Right. Oh, I totally agree, yeah. So report 2, report from an agenda item would all be filled out beforehand, right?
yeah.
Okay.
And what, I'm not sure, would the clerk fill this out or administration?
So it's,
Whoever is bringing the legislation to us.
so if a committee is, I guess the committee chair would,
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Resolution, and then where it says in that one top left-hand box, ordinance, resolution, and motion would be filled out beforehand. The middle top box would be filled out during/after. Strategic goal beforehand. Now contract required. Those would be filled out beforehand. Do we need those? What are you thinking?
Yeah, if there was, If it needs to be a contract, it should be yes, no.
Right,
So yeah, that would have to be filled out beforehand.
okay. Fiscal impact, filled out beforehand. Additional documents attached beforehand. Those are all things we want to, I'm just double checking, I know that obviously we'd want this fiscal. and the-
Especially additional documents. In years past, legislation has been posted, but not actually the guts of the legislation,
Like the
Oh, wow.
Appendix A,
like Appendix A or Exhibit A or whatever.
yeah.
And so, yeah, you've got the legislation of what it said, but you don't have the body
Right.
of it.
Right,
So, yeah, that's really important to get that additional documentation.
right. And if we can get this digitally, I mean, that's an easy link to copy.
Yep.
So policy issue, does city council wish to adopt this motion, ordinance, resolution, and for what purpose? So then, I don't quite know how that would apply to us, the policy issue. Like, I don't, okay, I guess I shouldn't have phrased it like that. I don't know, hello, you're good, come on in, we haven't started yet, we got like 20 more minutes. I don't know what they mean, like, what would they want under there? Does that make sense?
I wonder if that's, so the way I would see that is, so administration would have legislation, and they would fill out this document, and then present it to a committee, and then the committee decides, do we want to put this on the, council agenda? Maybe that's what it means?
So like, Ron would come to us, say, here's why I think you should adopt this, and this is why, this is the policy issue it falls under, here you go. Okay,
And then,
and then,
So do we think this is actually gonna be followed? Do we think they're actually gonna do all this?
no,
do we want to hold them to,
Yes, I'm in total agreement
I
of
mean,
what this says.
we-
First of all, let
we
me
have-
back
we have-
up.
hang on,
I'm not
wait.
on this committee, so,
okay, then,
let,
but we, I mean, it's very clear that we have a communication issue. This is one attempt
yeah.
to help solve
right.
that
to bridge that,
communication
yes.
And a
issue.
while ago,
And when
Go
you're moving in a direction, you don't necessarily do things because you think they're gonna work.
Right.
You're doing things to show
effort,
documentation
oh, yep,
and effort. So like, some of the things on the back end that we've been complaining about, they can't be seen.
No, you're not in your mic.
Oh, sorry. I'm like, I mean to say it in the mic. That's what I was, you're like,
But you're not.
I thought you were warning me. Like, I meant to.
I meant to do.
So some of the things that we've seen as problematic, if we don't have tangible measuring tools. So this can be used as an informative tool for us.
Yeah.
And it also, on the back end, can be used as a tangible measuring tool for policy. So I think we should do it whatever no matter what the outcome will
Whether we
yield.
think it will come, well, I'm shutting up.
Well, and I think too, a while ago, I was kind of saying the same thing. And Mary Jo said to me, you know, we have to control what we can control. And what we can control is the policies and legislation that we put in. Whether somebody
Sure.
else is going to follow them or not, that's up to them.
And so that kind of teeters on that previous conversation about having tangible things.
And focusing on your lane and what you can control and, yeah.
So I'm not really caring about the outcome. I'm just trying to, I see other things that this can
Yeah.
do.
I agree. Okay,
I
so
don't mean I don't care about the outcome. That's not what
I,
I meant.
We
yeah,
understood.
no, we got you, Matt. We know that you care, but
And that's kind of where I preface this whole conversation is, this might not be the ultimate solution. There might be a different ultimate solution, but we gotta, at this point, we have to try something.
Exactly.
And so this is our first try.
And we're tweaking it as we go along, so it will probably be something substantial
yeah.
and effective.
Yeah.
I'm not on this committee.
So, audience member Dewald. So
I'm not either then.
are you really not?
You're not
Oh,
on
yes,
this
you are.
committee?
Oh my gosh, I was gonna say, are we breaking the law by having this meeting right now? Okay, we're not. We're not, I promise. Okay, anyway.
You're on it, aren't you?
Yeah, you're on here.
Yeah.
She's not.
Rascal.
Sassy.
So for the policy issue, okay, just to make sure I understand. So Ron comes to City Community Development, he says, here's this thing I want you to do, here you go, here's why. And then if I say, wow, I really like this, then I'm gonna kind of, in my own words, in policy issue, put, why do I think council should adopt this and what is the purpose when I present it to whole group? Is that, am I following that logic correctly?
I almost think that's still an administration line for what does Ron think this is addressing?
Okay. So,
He brought it to us for a reason. What is his reasoning? What is his, I hate to use the word justification,
so
because
then,
that sounds way too strict.
right,
But what was his thought behind putting this in place?
so then what if a piece of legislation isn't given by administration? So like right now, the tenants legislation that we're working on wasn't given to me by administration. It was something that a community member brought to our attention and that we took up on. So
Then you would fill this out.
then I would fill out the policy issue.
Mm-hmm.
So let me repeat what you said. I'm not sure I was clear. You are creating a document legislation? Because that's not council's job.
For tenants, for the tenants thing,
Right.
it's, that tenants union people who came to us, they asked that we look at
Right.
pieces of legislation for North College Hill to possibly put in place.
Because we had that with another person on council.
But she's not writing it.
Okay, that's.
No, I'm not writing it.
We're
Okay.
reviewing it, and then she'll send
Right.
it to Dieters,
Got
and
it.
then.
Right, we're gonna, it's literally,
Sorry.
I took,
I saw where you were going
I-
with that.
I was talking
Yeah.
about.
literally,
Yeah.
I copy and pasted Cincinnati's, put it in a document, and we're gonna tear it apart, decide
Perfect.
what we want for our city, and then send it back to Dieters,
I'm
he's
gonna be
gonna write
quiet.
it, and then, yeah. No, it's
Are you
okay,
on this
there was,
committee?
there was a lot of discussion between me and Dieters when he and I met about what we were gonna do about it, but I haven't presented it to you guys yet, because it's
Okay.
not in this committee, but anyway,
Well,
back to
you
what we
have
were
my
saying.
permission.
Okay, good. But anyway, so yeah, so if policy issue, it would be basically, so then policy issue, policy alternative, so would all of the following, I haven't read through all of them yet, would those all be filled out by whoever is presenting that legislation?
Say that again, I was reading.
No, you're fine.
Trying to,
The,
so you're on policy alternative?
well, I guess I was just, okay, yeah, let's just go one by one. I was just saying, I haven't read through all of them yet. But would all of those then be the same as policy issue? It's, you know, if administration is coming to us saying, we want this piece of legislation, they're gonna fill them out. If I'm coming to you guys separate of administration saying, hey, I want this legislation, then I would fill that out. Whoever is coming to council saying, I want this piece of legislation is filling that out. Gotcha, okay. So policy alternative, council can choose to not approve the motion, blah, blah, ordinance resolution. Of course, ours wouldn't be about motion, so I'm just gonna cross that out. We already decided that. And, okay, sorry. City council can choose to not approve the ordinance or resolution and what will occur. Additionally, council can choose to alternative choice for council. I feel like that doesn't apply to anything we've done. Anybody think of? I mean, I guess it would, like, when we were coming up to the two comprehensive plans. We presented both. The alternative for one was the other. Is that kind of what this is referring to? A situation like that?
I feel like this is more like, we're given a document and we tweak it, so that would be the alternative. Like, let's say a salary ordinance was given to us and they were giving everybody a 20% raise, and we're like, probably not. So we would adjust it, and that would be our alternative.
So I'm
I don't
taking
know,
this as.
I'm winging it.
Right. I took this as, okay, so if there is an alternative, 2 sheets are filled out, 1 for each. And on this one is the alternative, and on this one's the alternative. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's how
I
I
think
took it.
you're spot on with the two
Right.
reports, that we chose one and not the other.
So then this one's gonna be a like, as needed. If
Yeah.
there's not an alternative, nobody's gonna fill it out.
Did I just speak again?
I'm shutting off your mic.
We're putting tape on your mouth. Put your mask on.
I'm gonna tell Chief Sherrain you don't have your mask on.
Okay.
As needed before.
By the way.
All right, recommendation. Staff recommended that council receive this report and adopt the necessary, so it's basically saying who is backing this piece of legislation, right? So if Ron backs it, but Tracy doesn't, Ron's gonna put his name, but not, Tracy's not, kind of thing. Right? Am I seeing that? Okay. Do we need that? Do we like that?
Yeah, I think so. Because, like, whose idea was this? So just like the tenants thing. So
Right.
you're, and I would not just put Marjorie Anderson, I would put Chair of Community Development.
Right.
Marjorie Anderson.
Well, and, I mean, under this, you could also put, the tenants union's name, or would that not be appropriate?
I don't think that would be appropriate.
Ms. Zorb instructed me to say, no, I'm just joking, but she did really, that there could be a committee.
Miss
I'm
Dewald.
sorry, Ms. Dewald.
I was like, what did she
I did
tell you
what?
all the way down there?
Listen, my brain's fried.
I don't know sign language.
Ms. Dewald, who is not on the committee, instructed me to say no, but she suggested that, what if there's a committee that recommends,
Right,
which is a good point.
Yeah.
right, it really could be anybody. Yeah, I mean,
So
I'm fine with
I like
keeping
it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's keep that.
So obviously, that's gonna be filled out beforehand. All right, statutory / policy authority. So, okay, this is important to me because recently I figured out a piece of legislation that was passed a while ago was done not totally, it's not illegal, but it was just not done the way it was supposed to be. And so it would have been really good to have this so that it could have been done correctly, is all I'm saying. So I want this one in big capital letters on the page. Anybody disagree? I don't care. I'm kidding. All right, so that's gonna be filled out before.
Oh, I just had an idea and I lost it.
No, you're fine. Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there. Do you want me to move on, or?
Yeah, because it's not,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, you're fine. Fiscal impact summary. So then the fiscal impact at the top would just be kind of like a little tiny blurb, where at the bottom it would be more in depth. Okay.
More of the explanation. That's what I think.
Okay.
See, that's where the fiscal impact summary, I think that's where we could kind of have more poignant questions.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just having the background, maybe what line it's gonna come from,
Right.
giving details, giving us a chance to go back and,
What line it was going to come from, and was it already appropriated? Or does it need a subsequent
And then
appropriation?
that's a way to kind of,
So I'm gonna put explanation of why, line item, appropriation.
Was it already budgeted or does it need an appropriation?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Documentation's always good.
I would agree. Okay, anything else for that line? Explanation of line item, was it already budgeted or does it need appropriation? Okay. Background information, provide background information related to the topic. Anybody got a no for that one? I'm a yes.
I mean, it might be NA, but we can have it there just in case there
Yeah, I
is
think
something.
it needs to stay.
I agree, yeah. Attached information, so that would just be the same, additional documents attached information. I think that's fine. Have it in both places. That way we can also check if it's kind of the same thing, if everything is consistent throughout. I like that, like to double check,
I know what it was.
yeah.
Who wrote the legislation?
So would that be reported from, do we want to say specifically up there with that? So report from and written by blank?
Sure.
Okay. So report to, report from, legislate and written by, and then agenda item? Okay. And even if those are the same things, there might be one day where it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go down and sort of just read through all the notes I took. So, reported to, reported from, legislative written by, legislation, not legislative, legislation, written by, an agenda item are all filled out beforehand by whoever is presenting this. The ordinance or resolution, we took out motion, because motions will not be handled like this, is written beforehand. Filled out during / after will be first reading, second reading, third reading, pass, fail, vote results, and or public hearing date if we need it or not. Strategic goals will be filled out beforehand. The contract, yes or no will be filled out beforehand. And then additional documents attached will be filled out before. Fiscal impact, just a number with that or a small description. The budgeted expenditure, source funds, all filled out beforehand. So source funds would be line item, basically. Can I scratch that out and put line item?
Yes,
Because that's the language that
Yep.
we use most
Yep.
often.
I like it.
All right, line item, instead of source funds, but means the same thing. Please see further more detailed information regarding the fiscal impact in the summary section of this report. And that's below. So policy issue, that'll be filled up by administration or whoever is presenting this beforehand. Policy alternative, as needed beforehand. Recommendation, beforehand. Statute / policy authority, beforehand. Fiscal impact summary, beforehand. We want that to include explanation of why, the line item. Was it already budgeted for, or does it need an appropriation? Background information will be filled out beforehand and as needed. Attached information will be filled out beforehand and is expected to match the additional documents attached above. And then we can, I think that's kind of good. I like how this up here is like just a little summary. If anybody wants a quick look, you can dig in here deeper if you need to. I feel like this should be expected to be written in plain language instead of this language.
Yes, legal instead of the legal jargon.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else that we kind of want to throw in here?
I can't think of anything else at this moment, but I think that's it can be a living document, and we
Yeah.
make changes as when it doesn't fit what we need, then we make changes to make it fit.
I like working on things like this. So I volunteer to kind of make the changes and bring them next time. I didn't know if anybody else wanted to. I enjoy working on this kind of stuff, but
Perfect.
Okay, all right, I will write this down to have this ready by next month.
Tell me because I just closed it down. What's the title on that? Does it
Staff
say
report template.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And this is gonna be due March 28th. Hey, same date. I will move in 1 second, sorry guys. My computer's just starting. All right.
I have a follow-up question then.
Yeah.
Does anyone know, do we need to make a resolution then to put that in play?
Resolution to what?
To make, like, to activate it? I don't know what other word to
We
use.
would have to.
Or do we just say, this is what we would like to use going forward?
I think that's a good question for Mr. Mosby. It just depends on how cooperative you would want to be. So we're proposing a document when we have legislation, up and coming legislation.
Similar to this.
You can take a look at it. And it would be, just what we're trying to do is some of those conversations that are exchanging during council meetings to alleviate those, and just kind of answer some of those questions up front. If you guys will be amiable about just kind of just, hey, this is what, council gets with each piece of legislation, then we don't have to create a resolution for it. But if you don't want to do it, then I guess we'd have to see if it's,
May I ask a couple of questions?
sure.
Okay.
We made a lot of changes, by the way, so if you see something on there that you're like, how does this apply? It might.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
So my first question is this something that you all are discussing to be considered for every piece of legislation that is on the agenda?
Yes.
So that means even for repetitive, for example, we have legislation resolutions that, for grass cutting, assessments and things like that. Would one of these be necessary for that every time?
I think so, because if that's repetitive, then this is gonna be just as repetitive, once you make it,
Okay?
Well, the other thing is, I might have prematurely asked that because that kind of did, because the administration may not be the only person proposing legislation,
Right,
so they wouldn't always be filling it out anyways.
yeah, this isn't always gonna be you.
It's
No,
gonna be-
I was actually, at this particular
Only
point, I was
asking
only
for-
asking about legislation that I know that we would do. So Ms. Blythe, for example, although with the SALT, I actually could see something like this, because it comes out once a year. Same thing with the SKIP resolution or LTIP. That does come out once a year, but I could see that. I was thinking more just along the lines of regular resolutions that we typically have that, would just be a part of, us passing those resolutions just so that we can get the information to places like, the county auditor's office.
Since I haven't been here a full year yet, I'll refrain from that because I haven't seen the cycle of things that come forward. So I'll leave that to the non-member.
I personally think that a lot of the times, I think Mary Jo said it best a little bit ago, and I know that Mr. Christine did as well. There's a lot of times where communication has fallen. And I think if we kind of have this precedent of, hey, this is how we're going to handle things. I mean, I think about it as my lesson plans. Yeah, I do the same thing every Friday. We do Science Friday and this and that, but I still write my lesson plans and I still have them filled out and I still send them to my boss. And even though we do the same thing every single Friday, I'm still going to send them and I'm still going to make sure that I have my boxes checked. That's kind of how I view this. It's a communication thing. Yeah, okay, every year, every few months, we fill out the grass stuff. But if that's just as repetitive, and this is going to be just as repetitive, and you copy and paste it, you change a date, you change a this, and they send it to us, and then it kind of sets a good precedent, a good habit for communication, for information tracking, You know, we can always look back at this document and say, oh, hey, I remember this, and this happened, you know, is that what you have on your document? Not as a, oh, I caught you, but as a, hey, let's keep this information consistent, let's keep the communication open. That's how I personally
Okay.
view it.
I would,
don't-
then, Ms. Dukes Dean, I would say in the spirit of what Ms. Anderson just said, we would just go ahead and do it, period. So it doesn't need any formal motion or anything like that. I appreciate the fact that you said that it's in the spirit of communication and trying to cooperate so that we can make government more effective. So I would just go ahead and do it.
Like, you know how we save those questions for a council meeting?
Yes. However, may I also say this though, if I may? What's interesting is that one of the things that I've tried to do now and be more consistent with it is instead of, because I know that in the past legislation used to come directly onto the council agenda, and I know that that was troublesome. So what I've done is, to the best of my ability, is to drive it through a committee, because at the committee, that's where you would have the discussion. And then I would just say, if the discussion is done at the committee level, then those questions would not have to be answered. So I could, what I was going to say was, but for the benefit of those who may not be on the committee, for example, there's a couple of people that are not on the committee tonight, having this then
Right.
would be able to give them a summary of what had happened.
Right. Well, and then this too, we are also thinking could also be presented. So if you are coming, let's say you're coming to City Community Development and Recreation, I'm saying that only because I know it well, and you're saying, hey, I like this idea, I want to get it going. You know, you might present something like this to me. Hey, here are my strategic goals for this. This is why I think you should do it. Here's the policy issue I think would fall under. Here's my recommendation. And then, you know, let's say I love it and I go, wow, love that idea. I'm going to take this document. I'm going to edit it. Okay, here's additional things, strategic goals that the committee talked about. Here's all the committee members that are recommending this. Here is blah, 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 blah. So this might even be something that if you are presenting something to a committee, that it be done before that, if that makes sense. But also, yeah, too, when we do go to whole committee, or to whole council meetings, that it also be presented there as well, but it might just be more of a joint, this might be more of a joint effort than just you sitting there typing up this document. It might be, oh, hey, you know, we came up with this and we wanted to add that, and does that make sense? It's not gonna be a one and done kind of document, I guess. It'll be more of a breathing document.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do understand that. So, again, I will just affirm that I can definitely do this.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I'll do is just tailor this to our city.
Awesome.
And, you know, I
Actually,
know
I believe that's what
Yeah.
Audrey's
I'm gonna
she's
go ahead and change the things that make sense for us and that we would like to see on there.
Right.
And then I'll just go ahead and send it to you. I mean, there are gonna be some things that aren't gonna apply. Like things like, where was it? Oh, the policy alternative. Now that makes sense for something like when we had the two different comprehensive plans coming, and you know, we could put on there, the alternative is this other comprehensive plan. But that's not gonna make
heard
sense
that.
for everything, cause there's not always gonna be another piece of legislation coming up that's the alternative. So, you know, but we're still gonna keep that on there for the times that it does matter.
You know, it's interesting, just as a matter of this information.
Mhm.
You know, it's interesting, when I worked at ODOT, what they would do was always look at 4 alternatives every time that they were looking at a problem.
Mhm.
And the first alternative was, what would happen if we do nothing? Which is interesting, because that's what they have up here. The
Yeah.
policy alternative, I think would just, you're right, I mean, I can, even to that degree, I can simply say, if council chose not to take this action, this is what would happen.
Right,
So if
exactly. Yeah.
So I'll use the example that I
Yeah,
said
that's
before.
good, because when we
Yes.
were making that decision about the taxes,
Correct.
I mean, receiving the funds,
Yeah.
appropriation funds, and it was like, well, you know, if council doesn't do this today, you know, this is gonna be
Right.
our outcome. So kind of knowing that ahead of time alleviates you the stress of having to say,
Right.
please.
The only thing that I would ask, though,
Right.
in return, and I would ask this, is that in those instances where time is of the essence, I would clearly put that on here,
Yeah.
and that council then would be receptive to saying, okay, we understand that this is one that has to be passed now, and so we would do that.
Well, if it is to be passed, it should be passed at that point, but yeah, I agree, yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like the majority of us have been pretty receptive to that. I mean, even if it's not, you know, our personal favorite thing to be doing legislation last minute, I don't think that recently, at least,
No,
from my perspective, we've given much of a
I
fight.
agree, and that's what I've tried to do, is to make
Yeah.
sure that I reduce the number
Right,
of pieces of legislation that would have to be,
Right.
you know, voted on.
that would be
immediately.
awesome, yeah. All right, so I know that we got a lot going in public safety, and I want to give us a little break before we jump into that, because I need to use the restroom, so. But I know we talked about legislative procedure, and I know that got covered tonight, so thank you guys all for working through that.
Can I hold you to a deadline to have those changes made? So I
Yeah.
can put it in the minutes?
I put my due date was March 28th, because that's this meeting. This? No, no.
Okay.
No. These are my very sloppy copy
Oh, I
notes.
got you, okay.
No. No, I'm gonna make it all fancy and Nancy, and it won't say City of Trenton, it'll say City of North College Hill, but yeah, that's what I put with my due date, but I can send it, I can make it sooner if you need me to. I don't have anything going on this weekend.
Then you'll meet the deadline. That's awesome.
All right. Council rules, process for committee meeting minutes and agenda, and then summer session. I know that those are on the top of Erica's list, so I know she's gonna wanna get to those too. Any new business or action items? My action item, I know Erica's gonna want me to put it. I'm gonna get that done by March 28th.
I'm glad we didn't talk about summer session. I'm still thinking about it.
Well, that's okay. Erica's much more passionate about it than I
I
am.
know.
So I'll leave her to fight that battle.
I gotta say, I know we're over time, but I'm gonna throw my 2 cents out. I am not in favor of canceling summer session, only from the perspective of, if we need a meeting, we can call a meeting.
Yeah.
It's not like, yeah. I mean, how else do you supposed to plan your vacation if you don't
And
know you
honestly,
have?
I like to go for a month. Like I went to Florida last year for a month.
So look at how many meetings you would miss,
Two.
Yeah.
and 2 committees, and, I mean,
Well, but committees don't have to do a summer session.
right.
But still, yeah. No, I get
Yeah.
it.
And I said I only did that 1 year, but I would like to continue that lovely vacation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I have a few opinions.
But I am
But-
only saying that with selfish ambition. If it is better for council
Right.
to meet in the summer session, I'll sacrifice. I'll let my kids know you decided.
They can
So
come throw
I
eggs
do
at my
have-
house.
I'm sorry, because Eric's the one that's passionate about that, so I don't know, we're gonna reach an
Yeah.
answer
No, I
without her.
just,
Um,
I don't want to talk about it without her because I know that she has a lot of opinions and I'm sure she
Yeah, I
wants to
think it
voice
would
them.
be worth hearing whatever she has to say.
So, can I do want, we should probably talk about in new business. Bill had mentioned about the House bill, and I can't remember the number he said.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
About virtual. Do we want to talk about that real quick? Do we have
Yeah.
any idea that we want to do that? I can tell you my opinion.
Yeah, I can tell you mine too. Well, I think Bill said it best too. I mean,
I think
Too
with the
little, too
numbers
late.
going down so drastically, I don't know that we would need to.
and that's what I was thinking.
Kind of where I am.
It would have been nice to have it around Omicron, but at this point, it's kind of like,
Yeah, it's
well,
like government moved way too slow on this one, and we're past the.
government moving slow.
I know.
We would never. No, yeah, I agree. If anybody is very passionate about doing them from home, though, I will do whatever it takes to make other people comfortable. And if that's what they're comfortable with, I'm fine with it, but unless anybody's super passionate about it. Loree, do you have an opinion about it? Doing meetings from home at all or anything?
Oh, no,
No?
it's like when you pass water under the bridge.
Yeah. Anybody else? Sarias? Mary? Please do, audience
Put the
member.
mask on.
Mary, do you want?
I'm talking about your opinion.
So, we did have virtual meetings, not
Yeah.
everybody stayed on camera. If
That's a
we
good
had
point.
ever had to go back to that, I think it would have to be that everybody has to be on camera the whole time. I just found that a lot of times it was myself and Mary Jo and maybe one other person. And it's like, we're supposed to have 10 people here and we only see 3.
Wait,
I would agree with that.
yeah.
If we did go back to meetings, I think it should be mandatory that we have cameras on.
I don't think we need to, but
You don't think we need to go back to virtual, or we don't have to use our cameras?
I don't think we need to go back to virtual, and I don't think we need to use our cameras. I'm in meetings all the time where
Yeah.
the cameras are off, like one person, probably the person leading it. And then sometimes we use Teams, they're sharing their screen and presenting. You can't see anybody anyways. You're having to pay attention. So that isn't necessarily our plight, but you know, I don't even think it needs to be up. We're here. The numbers
Right.
are going down.
That's, yeah,
I don't feel unsafe.
yeah, I
So
agree.
does anyone feel like we want to do virtuals again? Because I'm hearing the consensus that we don't.
That's all I got.
All right.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, anything else in new business, or are we ready to go? All right, hearing silence, I'm going to adjourn rules and public policy at 7:40. How about a 5-minute break before public safety? Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All right, see y'all in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Where's she?
Well, welcome again. It should be. I also printed it out if you need it. It's in the same email that Erica sent. All right, cool. All right, so welcome to Public Safety Committee. Monday, February 28th at 7:30. We're starting a little bit late, but that's okay. All right, so the documents that we should have for this today are, let me make sure I have the right documents out before I tell you guys. What Erica sent out was the agenda, the copy of resolution, no number, but 22, resolution determining to proceed with the renewal of existing police levy of a tax in excess of the 10 mil limitation, notice of election, and I also went ahead and took the liberty to print out the employment agreement for Chief Shrand that Mr. Mosby sent us. I believe that was Mr. Mosby who sent that to us. So those are the documents we should all have. The first thing, if everybody's okay with the agenda, I'm assuming everybody is. All right. The meeting minutes are coming from Miss Underwood. And I guess we'll just move along. So the police levy legislation. Is there anything you guys want to talk about with this?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes, Madam Chair.
I wasn't given any notes about this beforehand, so I have no idea.
And actually, I was gonna try and keep in the spirit of actually what you gave me earlier, so to maybe help with that. So, first of all, the police levy legislation is the resolution to proceed. This is the process that we have to go to in order to put the renewal of the 4.9 mil legislation on the budget for the residents of the city to vote for. So this would be necessary for us in order to maintain the police levy that we have. It has to be renewed. We are coming up on the expiration of that particular term.
Madam Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
is, I'm misinterpreting it. Is it going from 3.2 mil to 4.9 mil?
No, it was at 4.9 mil. We are recommending that it remain at 4.9 mil. We're not asking for an increase.
Fire was
The-
at 3.2. The fire was at 3.2. That's
Oh, that's
probably
where
where
I'm
you're
getting
confusing.
that
Yeah.
number.
So
Okay,
just to triple check, this is
okay,
a
thank
renewal,
you.
right?
I'm getting.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. That's what, I saw that. I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear. This is a renewal. No, you're fine. I
So
just
you've
wanted to
gone
make sure.
through the budget and everything, Mr. Mosby, and you don't find a need for an increase at all?
We don't find a need for the increase in this particular levy at this time. That is correct.
And then how long will 5 years, I see it.
That
Okay.
is correct.
So then are
So-
you,
I was surprised.
are you
Okay.
suggesting
Okay.
that there's possibly another levy coming on top of this as an addition to this renewal?
No, not
They
not
will
during the
not-
term, not during the term of this particular levy. No.
Okay, so for the next 5 years, this is going to be the money that you were asking for?
Correct. This will be the money that that goes into the restricted fund, which we call the police levy fund.
Gotcha.
It'll still range about, I guess, $650,000, something like that, 125 per mil.
Yes, this is based on I believe it was the last council meeting, you received a piece of correspondence
Yes.
from the auditor's office showing about what the approximate revenue
I
would
think
be.
it said 125,000 per mil. Okay.
Okay, all right, so, looking at this, this actually is a good report. One of the questions it says is policy alternative. If council chooses not to adopt the policy, not to place the issue on the ballot, the levy will expire at the end of December 31st of this year. However, the last year of collection would then be 2023, so we would still collect during 2023 because taxes are always in arrears, a year behind. But then after that, there would be no more revenue for the levy fund. So the recommendation that I would make is that council pass the proposed legislation that we can then forward to the Board of Elections and to make sure that it's on the ballot. The statutory or the policy would basically be, you know, our charter and basically the laws that say that the residents must vote on any of the levies. And so since this is a 5-year levy, the citizens would have to vote on it. So the fiscal impact, which I'm just giving this right now, but the fiscal impact would be, as Ms. Bly said, if we did not do it, then we would have over $650,000. We would have $650,000 less, basically, to assist with our police and our police services. Bless you.
It's almost 126,005, almost, I found it, okay.
So, I'm not sure what number you were saying there.
126,485, so.
I think that is for the value. Is that the?
Flip to
Yeah.
the next sheet.
Yeah, that's the sheet.
Flip to the next sheet.
Well, this sheet says, 540,344.
Okay.
Which one's right? You don't take the one?
No, I think the one that you were reading might have been the value of the,
Property tax revenue, estimated property tax revenue.
right,
Per mill.
okay.
So that's per mill, so you'd multiply that by the 4.9.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
So that's the number on that second sheet.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to do.
Yep.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So if we do not have, of course, if we do not pass that levy, then that is that much money less that we would have to help fund our police department. Any additional background information? This levy, as far as I know, I think has been in existence since 2013, I believe.
This will be the 10-year mark, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been in existence since 2013. So in essence, what we're doing is actually the second renewal of this levy is what we would be talking about. And so that is all I have, Madam Chair, at least for right now, unless there are any questions.
Come up with a different number.
I have a question, more of a request. I know that I just totally lost my train of thought of what I was gonna request. I'm sorry. Ms. Orb, did you have something? I saw you lean towards your mic.
I did, thank
It'll
you.
come back to me in a second.
Body language. So I happened to dig this up. This was the last time the levy got renewed. So I'm going to ask if we fulfilled any of these items that were on here. So one on here says that we would have 17 full-time police officers. Do we have 17 full-time police officers?
We have billets for 17. We do not currently have 17 on the roster.
How many do we have?
14.
14?
And you have 3 positions opened that you're currently interviewing and hiring for?
Yes.
Gotcha.
This says we have 14 part-time police officers.
No, that is not true. We have
3.
So
Three part-time.
are we looking for part-time police officers?
We are constantly looking for part-time police officers, but in the current environment,
Could you get closer to your mic, please?
we're always looking for part-time police officers, but in the current environment, right now, we would be happy to be up to the full staffing of the 17 full-time officers with the way the hiring practices and things are going.
So I know you have more, I'm sorry, Mary Jo. So you're looking for, okay, so you said we have 3 part-time, and that there's enough money in this for, at the point of passage, I know, obviously cost of living goes up, and I know that expenses go up. So then let's say now, maybe according to this levy money, I don't know the actual number, maybe we have room for 5. Are you actively interviewing for those positions as well, the part-time?
Correct. So if I can shine some light on what I'm talking about. For example, for the 3 full-time positions we have available, we went out to National Testing Network with our civil service program to be able to hold the online test. We did that with the start of COVID because we didn't want to have everybody come in
Right.
to our building and sit in one room to do that.
I remember this conversation last time we had it, and Ms. Dukestein was saying that there were some ways from her experience to make it easier. Were you able to apply any of those techniques, or able to get in touch with Ms. Dukestein to see if she had any other suggestions? Or
I have not been able to get in touch with her. We were able to get it to get the process down as easy as possible.
Okay.
Where as long as they have access to the internet, they are able to
Gotcha.
get on, and they're able to take the test and to submit to us. We've even gone as far as sending out recruiting teams to the academies.
And those changes haven't made since we last talked?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Where we've even worked with the National Testing Network to the good recruits out of the academies that we would want, and the minority candidates and the folks that way,
Okay.
where we could offer free testing. Because right now the candidate has to pay for that testing.
Right.
Where we could offer them the free testing, where the city would pay for that, almost as a recruiting tool to be able to
Gotcha.
get them interested in North College and come here.
Okay.
But the most recent one, so we put it out, and they've had 2 months to take that test and to do that. I had 7 applicants that
Right.
took and passed the test that we were able to interview for 3 positions.
Well,
And
then I
that's,
would like
and
to.
that's for full-time.
Yeah. Then I would like to say thank you to Ms. Dukestein for suggesting that. I really appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear that you guys listened and that your words were of service. So thank you for that. If nobody else has said it, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I'm gonna just keep going down these, I'll speculate that your department put this together, so I'm just gonna keep running down I'm calling them your bullet points. So it says you wanted to implement a 7-year cycle for police fleet replacing 1 cruiser per year. Have you done that?
That's actually what we were starting this year when we were talking about the leasing
But my point is,
program.
this was from the last time. This was
5 years
from
ago?
5 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm asking, was it started the 5 years ago when this was?
I
Okay.
would not know. I guess I
I-
would have to kind
She
of.
said no.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't here, so I apologize.
I know that there were
Is-
talks of that when I first started about a year ago, but I mean, just talks doesn't mean much.
I will say though, I'm actually glad that you asked that, because one of the things that I had mentioned and that we are doing is looking to make sure that we do keep the fleet in ready condition, and our goal is to make sure that we rotate the cars. We're actually looking at, 4 years at this particular point? So every 4
So
years
instead of this
being able
7-year
to-
cycle that's listed here, you're
Right,
gonna
because of the
change it to
lease
4?
program, right. Because what was happening I don't know if this was happening during that time, but when cars were being purchased, once we purchased the cars, right, if the cash was being dispersed in total, then of course, while we own the car, we were also responsible for all of the maintenance and everything. And so if there was major maintenance that was required, then we had to have a significant cash outlay, and you'd have to build that up. And that's been part of the challenge. So that's why we were going to the leasing, so that with the leasing, we would not have to deal with that. And the cash outlays would be even cash outlays that can be anticipated over a longer period of time.
Okay. This says to provide jail days for mayor's court. I'm not sure I even understand what that means, so maybe you could help me understand what that means and
Yes.
if you did it.
We have not been able to do that, but that's off of the state's requirements. So what that means is that we would, when somebody comes into our mayor's court and they're convicted in mayor's court, and they cannot come up with fines, they cannot come up with costs or something like that, that our magistrate would be able to assign them a certain number of days in jail, if you would. The problem came in after this levy was passed that Hamilton County did not have the space
Yep.
in their jail, and they would not allow us to do anything that way with housing any of our folks from any mayor's courts in Hamilton County. We had a previous arrangement, if you would, with Clinton County, and I think there was another one that was way out east, probably 2 counties away. Those counties went away as well, where they were not able to house or hold anybody. I went to a chiefs meeting, and we tried to even do a consortium with mayor's courts from like Reading and from 4 other places that I believe, to try to say that we would try to go to like Butler County,
Right.
to the sheriff there, and say, you know, if we all pooled our money together for this, could we get one per se jail cell for the year, and then depending upon how much money you could put into it, each entity would get this many days to
Right.
be able to assign, because then your mayor's court has a little bit of teeth, if you would, to it, so that you could encourage people to pay their fines and take care of their stuff. But that was not even able to happen.
And,
So-
and in all fairness, like that one, I could foresee just completely dropping off now that you explained the jail days for mayor's court due to COVID. Like, no one would have been in a position to negotiate
Right.
that in the Hamilton
But this
County or
was-
any.
This was written 5 years ago before.
No,
we
I'm
even knew
saying,
about
so
COVID,
like
but-
if we calculate back 5 years ago from 2022, you know, we're in 2017, and then we hit COVID 2019, they would have had to develop that 2 years in, and it still probably would have fell off, and the 2 years after they had, you know, negotiated it. So,
Okay.
And I mean, I get wanting your mayor's court to, like you said, have teeth and kind of have like a.
agreed, I'm just saying,
No, sorry, I wasn't disagreeing with you. I meant, I get that, but then I also think, you know, what are these people from mayor's court going to jail for because they can't pay their fine? I don't know. I see it on both ends, but yeah, I mean, either way, it was a promise that didn't seem to be kept. Whether it was, you know, they had 2 years to do it or 1 year, I don't know.
So the next bullet says to renovate the police building, and it says enhance and increase security features. Has that been
Started
done?
on that this year, recently, since
That's good.
well,
So you're just now starting that?
We started some of that project, actually 2 years ago with the camera systems and a lot of the other things that way. It's just been with COVID, with everything else going on, it's taken a lot longer than expected. But yes, we have done upgrades and some more security features around the station and things that way.
Okay, then it says appropriate furniture and workspace environments,
We have not been able to do that.
and remodel front lobby to make it safe and professional for North College Hill residents who need our services.
We were able to start some of that project. I would say that it has not come to the point of my vision, if you would, but we have been able to start that project. Because when I wrote that 5 years ago, if you remember, we had that half railing when you walked in the doors. So when you walked in the doors, there's the half railing there. And that was one of my biggest fears, is that when people would come to pay tickets or come to talk to us to fill out a report, I would often catch people sitting on that railing, and behind that was like a 10 or 20-foot drop
Right,
down
yeah.
there, down that stairs.
Steps.
So if you look at the police building, you will see that we did those renovations right away, where now you have the wall that goes completely up to the ceiling, and all of that is boxed in as part of those security and those other features.
So that's what you consider the front lobby? Because I would have thought the front lobby would have faced Galbraith, not Trojan Way. This says remodel front lobby.
Yes, so that is what they consider the front lobby currently. They, based on the building that we have, where everything was kind of piecemealed together, the walls, the existing structure and the stuff have been, to say it mildly, somewhat of a challenge to navigate that and what we can do structurally to move things around. But currently, that is what we would call the front lobby, is that's where we do our main business, is when people
Okay.
walk in that side door.
All right. The next bullet says to provide for miscellaneous capital expenditures, and a sub-bullet is replace outdated tasers and devices. I believe that was just done this past year too. Says replace outdated computer
Sorry,
systems.
I don't mean to interrupt you,
Oh,
but
go ahead.
weren't the tasers done not with the levy money though? Wasn't that done with general fund money?
Might have been done with the COVID money, because a lot of that is safety issues.
Yeah, so if this was part of the levy money, then why were things that are on the levy list done without, and I know the speech of, oh, it's all it's all one big pot, but as you've said, this is a specific pot that, you know, is only allowed to be touched for certain things with the police. And I could be totally wrong, but I definitely recall that those tasers were not bought with the levy money.
Actually, I do not.
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't, but we were, I think for us, one of the things that they did not have, Ms. Anderson, as you pointed out, the tasers that they had were the older tasers.
Well, because I get, that's not what I'm asking. I get the tasers. I understand. I agreed with you guys that we needed new ones. I didn't argue with you guys on that one. I totally agreed. I want to know where it came out of, because if it came out of the levy, then you're following through on your promise. That's, you know, oh, good. You followed through on your promise. I can trust you with another levy. If you didn't and you took it out of general fund, then that's a different thing of like, well, hold on a second. You know, you even had this plan. Does everybody get where I'm coming from?
I
Am I
do.
like on an island alone here?
Madam Chair.
Or? Okay. Yes, sir.
I think the way I see it is, and I know for a fact, remodeling and fixing up, the labor cost is so high that, to me, if I was in that situation, if there was anything I could use for the COVID money, like the tasers or like new restrooms, I would use that, and then hopefully save some of the money, that the police money that can't be flexible, and use that for the remodeling and the safety upgrades of the building. But I understand what you're saying.
But they had this
They
plan,
promised that
you
in
know,
there.
all of this was on there, and if they couldn't follow, and I
I
mean,
think
it's
that-
not like,
$1,000, and I do believe.
it's not like living wait.
This was way before COVID was
Yeah.
even.
Yeah, but I just
That's why
know how expensive
I don't know how
it is
COVID
to-
can even factor
I'll-
into any of
And
this.
I
really don't.
do.
how expensive
I
it
do.
is to
I-
to
The
lay
reason I can say,
upgrades, that I would have chosen that.
I mean, COVID just happened at the end of this levy.
well, no, not really.
The last 3 years
And,
of it.
and yes, the last 3 years of it. So I agree, when they set that bar, that they were setting a bar 5 years forward, not including epidemic.
Right.
So to say that some of
I'm
those,
sorry. I wrote 2016 on this. So this was way, way before any of that.
so the reason I'm calculating it, because based on the notes, it was said that this collective bargaining agreement, if set 5 years out, would actually cross over to 2023. So we have to actually calculate backwards 5 years from that point, no matter when that was going on. So if we were voting in 2022, which we will, on a collective, I'm sorry, did I say collective bargaining
Yeah,
agreement?
we
That's not
met
what I'm
in
trying to
middle,
say.
yeah.
On this piece of legislation, this levy, that would be, I just think police collective bargaining agreement, sorry about that. But if we are voting in 2022, this wouldn't actually be active, the levy that we're voting on in 2022, until 2024. So they still have 23, 22, 21, 19, and 18. That's the 5 years right there.
Yeah.
COVID started in 19. It started in March of 2019. So they have 3 years still yet to deliver on those. I'm not trying to defend or deny. I'm just saying, let's put this in proper timing perspective.
No, and I agree.
Am I wrong? Because if I'm wrong, help me.
It broke out in,
I don't
it
see
broke
it-
out in
I don't-
December
I don't
of
see it that way, and I
2019.
don't think
Oh, I think Mary Jo's
the
talking.
residents would see it that way. Only because if they voted on it, they're not thinking about when they're paying for it. They're thinking, I just voted on that. I want to see something tangible. I want to see where my money is going.
Right, but the money's only being collected within those timeframes. Help me, am I wrong? I mean,
No, you
Well,
are
And
correct.
this was a renewal, so it was already there.
so what they're
We're already
saying,
paying.
based on the renewal, so for instance, if we have another third renewal, then we would be looking for things that they're going to do with the renewal money starting in 2024 through 2029. So I do not have any issue holding them accountable to the things that they set on there. But I guess what I'm saying is some of the time they haven't had the time, and we did have a pandemic.
See,
So I'm responding to your perspective that the pandemic didn't affect the levy money.
Right.
I am very open to hearing your perspective if there's something I'm missing, because you have to remember, I've not yet been on council a year yet, so I'm just calculating the numbers in my head to try to make it make sense to what I would see, because I don't have any history. I'm just only looking at the timing that we said here and then the timing that you have there based on when we vote on it again and the timing that we would have forward.
See, and I agree. I think that the pandemic definitely does have an effect on things like this. I think that, but at the same time, I think if you're saying that you're setting aside money for something specific, and then you're not using it on that, and instead you're going to use other money, that's where it kind of. Now I totally understand. You know, you had more important things than to, buy new furniture. I totally get that. I mean, we've all
Remodel.
been put into those positions in these last few years. I definitely didn't plan on being 23, still living at my parents' house with the same car I drove my senior year of high school. I get it, but at the same time, I didn't set aside money for college and then go and spend it on an ice cream cone instead. I set aside money for college, and I did that, and that's what I did, and that's what I spent it on. And I'm one person who's only accountable to myself. I would expect a city and a police department passing a levy and asking for money to hold themselves accountable in the same way. So I'm not saying, I don't want you to think that I'm reprimanding you for, not checking off every single box that you put for yourself. I totally understand. What I'm looking at is, well, hold on a second, we set aside this money for you, the taxpayers paid for this money for you for this specific item, why wasn't it spent on that? That's more what I'm looking at, and that's what my grievance was, and we just wanted to clarify that, so that way it didn't get misconstrued, but anyway.
But I don't, so like, for example, those bullet points specifically pointed out like tasers.
Right,
So tasers should have come from that.
that's what I'm saying, yes.
Agreed.
Can I move on to the next bullet now?
Please
Sure.
do. I love this. I looked
I
forward to
know.
this all week.
Well,
That was sarcasm, I promise.
I just stumbled upon this, and then I'm like, well, how appropriate. So the next one says, replace outdated computer systems in the police department. That's been done?
Yes.
I was gonna say,
Awesome.
I think I heard that.
I
being
heard
done.
that
Yeah.
too.
Purchase modern investigative equipment.
That's been done too, hasn't it? With the software.
Yes.
Yeah.
Create a replacement cycle for the equipment.
That, in my view, that's why we're leaning towards a lot, like in the tasers and what we're leaning towards in the cars, of going towards what the industry standards is to lease some of the things rather than the one-time huge payouts, for that way, so that we can have the things that are under warranty, and as well as being under warranty can also have the flexibility to change with the technology. So for example, with the body cameras, before I became chief, when the levy first initially started, they spent probably $35,000 on the overall body camera system. Within 7-8 years, that camera system gets to be older. You have to replace a lot of the cameras, and it just gets expensive. So that's some of the things that we're looking at, like with the body camera grant that we're learning from that, the body camera grant that we just got, to be able to put those on a lease program so that we always have some of the newer technology, so we don't get into the same position we did with the tasers and the other things, so that we have the equipment to give our officers the resources to be able to do their job.
So, just clarify, the body cameras are paid for by a grant?
The body cameras were previously paid for by the levy. We went out and got a grant from the state of Ohio when they did that. That grant was announced earlier this year.
I remember it.
Yeah.
I know somebody who worked on it. Someone.
And
That
we were,
someone did a good job in
Yes.
getting it. These were cameras that were, additional.
and we were extremely happy for that, because one of the things, like the old camera system that we had,
Right.
came and downloaded to an in-house server. So for us,
Right.
every time we needed that camera footage for court, I had an officer sit there and burn to a DVD that video, if you
Right.
would. And then I had to have that video, because it was too many megapixels or megabytes, if you
Right.
would, to send in an email or send any other way. So I would have to have an officer deliver that down to the prosecutor's office
Right.
for every court case.
And all that's overtime.
And all of
jazz,
that
yeah.
cost us money, and all of that takes resources off the road when we already have limited. So we were so excited for the camera system that we're gonna get going, because it will then download it to a cloud-based secured server that we can give the prosecutor's office access to let them download it on their own, which will save me countless hours of officers on station doing
Right.
that.
So-
So the grant alone, besides just the new technology, not having to replace the cameras from the levy money and the other things, is so vital to what we're doing.
So what's happening to the old cameras then that were already paid for?
He's saying it's extra, I believe, right? Or
The-
wrong?
So you're keeping the old cameras as well?
No, the old cameras will be obsolete because they won't talk to the new system and the new
Right, that's
stuff.
what I got.
Okay.
So then what are you gonna do with them?
We're gonna try to sell them back to the company and get anything we can for them. Yeah, and anything we can that way, if anybody will take them.
Right.
And kinda, the company is watch guard, so we're kinda in infancy stages of that, because even though we know from the state that we've been approved for that grant,
Mhm.
we still haven't gotten money or any other directives just yet. We're still waiting on that. So as soon as we get more directives and a time frame of when that's gonna take place, then I can start taking those old cameras out of service and figure out what they're worth and how that's gonna
Gotcha.
work.
Okay, thank you.
So
for that.
I just want to, I guess, candidly say or ask,
Mhm.
the previous cameras were purchased with the levy resources?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we done with that one? Move on. Okay, has all the asbestos been abated in your building?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, this is gonna be a fun one. This bullet says to provide resources for community policing programs. The first sub-bullet is crime prevention and block watch programs.
Those programs were started. It did provide us with some of the abilities to do that. That was Lieutenant Petroselli, and he did start up several of the neighborhood watch and the block watch programs. That was also where we started working with Pastor King on a program for gun locks and gun safes and things like that. But all of those things were put to a rapid halt when COVID started.
I think the block watch ended way before that.
Way before
It
Yeah.
ended when Matt Miller Novak left, or not, sorry, the other
Matt
Matt.
Wallert.
Matt Wallert left. I pointed to that seat because that's where he sat.
Yeah.
It ended way before that. It did.
Okay.
Because Matt Wallert was the one that I think was basically driving that block watch program.
Well, I mean,
That's
there's
my
like
opinion.
a Facebook, like North College Hill Watch, but it's used as basically all the other Facebook pages are used to just complain and share information. I think that one's mostly actually used to share information, but either way.
So the next bullet says, implement a police explorers program. Has that been done?
No, it was too costly to do.
And then it says, reinstitute the Citizen Police Academy. Was that done?
No.
Oh, and it said, I have a side note here that says you were looking into seeing if you could make the police station a historical building. Had that ever gotten looked into?
They looked into it, and I don't think we were able to because of the government building. We were looking into that because that would allow us potentially to go out for different grants and different funding sources, if you would. If it was listed as a historical building, it would open up a new funding source for us to be able to take care of that building, police and fire. It did not qualify because certain portions of the building are old enough to do that, but because we had piecemealed onto it all along, we weren't able to qualify because of that.
Like Antiques Roadshow.
All right.
Can I see your flyer? Thank you.
You're welcome. That was the end of the flyer. You're off the firing range, or whatever you want to call
So
it.
then, given that information, is there going to be a document similar or updated given to council or given to people of the city who are gonna be possibly voting on this, whether or not council passes it? Given to us with an updated plan for that money, for a timeline for that money? And I understand, I mean, you guys, like Ms. 16 said, you guys have time on this, and I mean, COVID shut off a lot of it, and so I know that we try to understand that. But then there are things, you know, the tasers, money being spent for that wasn't meant for that, and then just things that it seemed like kind of got dropped. And I understand, I mean, that's not a to-do list that you're looking at every single day. You guys got, you know, bigger things to worry about in the moment. But is there going to be something possibly more realistic for us to look at?
So what is the plan?
What is the plan?
Okay.
Do we have a document?
I do not have a document. I can make a document and I can share that with you. I will say that from that document from 5 years ago, that again, that was a plan of wishful thinking, and these are all the needs that we have. And it was a flowing working document, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the stuff on council, because to me, that's a list of all my dreams and visions for what the police department could be. But when certain things happen, I have to be able to adapt to be able to keep the lights on and to keep the police department going. And I would just hope that everybody would keep that in mind as we go forward, because yes, I will say that although those were a lot of my dreams and what I look to do with it, the police department has not gone out and spent money frivolously. We just haven't had, honestly, the ability or the money, or the things have changed that we haven't been able to accomplish everything that we set out to do. Because I would say that we still have a lot of things on that list that we still need to accomplish, and there's still lofty goals that I would love to accomplish. One of the major things that I can tell you that would be on that list for the next 5-year period is to maintain that relationship with the school, and a lot of that money goes towards the school resource officer.
So, I don't want a dream list. I want something accurate.
Right.
I know Chief Fells came to us and he said, this is what this money's gonna be spent on, this is what this money's gonna be spent on, this is when we're gonna spend it, this is how we're gonna spend it, and I mean, they're already even following
Or
through on
even
that.
quantify it. Say, this is the need list, this is the dream list.
Right,
So-
yeah.
I'd be okay with that.
I
So,
mean,
Ms. Anderson, we can get that for you. We'll get
but
that
I
for
just
you.
wanna make sure it's clear, this isn't a dream list. I want something
Right,
realistic.
we'll
can
have
be
that for
checked
you.
off.
Cause I would have to say, from the perspective of council, like, this isn't council, this is a committee. But in all fairness, in looking at this, it does not look like a dream list. It looks
No.
like a task. That these are the things. This is, why do the police department need this levy? But if it was a dream list, okay, let's revamp this for the success of it ongoing.
Yep.
Because if you have taxpayer money you really want to show taxpayers why they want to incentivize them to vote continuum on this. So we have a responsibility, you and us, to make sure that the things that we said we were going to do are getting done. And if they're not, let's say, what happened there. And then this also kind of provide a wish list. It's not hard for me to see some of these, and then when we add the timing factor in there, but I think it can only add to why the voters, the citizens of North College Hill would want to vote for it if they could more tangibly see some of the things getting done, will get done, on the list to get done, and it helps keep from the lines being blurred, like when people know that this stuff is happening and they're paying for it, they're happy about it. At least I feel like they would be, right?
I would agree.
So,
Right, we agree. So that's why I said we will get that prepared, so that everybody can have that.
Sounds good to me. All right, so at this next meeting, we can expect a list, or,
I'm sorry.
so the next meeting, which would be a month from now, on March 28th, we can expect a list?
Yes, we'll go on. Do that.
So there's a different question, though, that needs to be asked. What is the deadline for council to pass the legislation?
The legislation has to be approved, before August, I believe.
So we have time.
We got time, yep.
Well, we probably want to do it before the summer
Well.
session begins,
This might have to take away some starting.
maybe by end of
I
May.
get it, but we don't have to rush and put this on council
Yeah.
agenda
Oh,
for the next meeting. That's,
Okay, I see what you mean.
we have time to wait for the next committee meeting.
Yep.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I was thinking about actually.
Yeah.
All right, so next, unless anybody else had anything else to say about the police levy, I don't want to move people on. All right, so,
tenant led, oh,
no, go ahead, please. Anything else? Okay. So I'm trying to find that email from a while back about the traffic calming. So the speed cushions and the traffic calming study, are those two different topics?
Of sorts, yes. The traffic calming report was given to council, I believe it was around October of 20, I believe.
I was here at that time, so I think,
Yeah. So I think it was around October of 20. And
I just
it
found it.
had recommendations in there, but specifically there was a discussion about speed bumps or speed humps. We did go ahead, I believe I had mentioned this, but we did go ahead and purchase the speed humps. So we do have those, and now that we're coming into spring, this would be the time that we would be able to implement them.
And I know that last time we had asked, I think it was at a whole council meeting, we had asked where your plan was to put those and what the schedule was for those.
And then did we decide on portable ones? I think we did, didn't we?
Yeah, I wouldn't, I would prefer not to call them portable, but you are correct. They are speed bumps. Now, what has to happen is they have to be drilled into
Yeah.
the street, the asphalt.
Okay.
The only reason I wouldn't want to call them that is because, honestly, if you start to pull them up, then you're destroying the asphalt underneath. And so wherever we put them, the expectation would be that we would be able to keep them there as long as possible.
Okay, so they're not portable.
So, back to my original question, is there a timeline for when those are gonna be put out and where they're gonna be put out?
Yes, as I was mentioning earlier, so we're coming into the spring, so we were looking at beginning to deploy in around the April timeframe.
Okay, can we
So.
get a physical, tangible thing saying like where those are gonna be and
Yes.
possibly when they're gonna move it out?
Mhm.
Okay. Can I, again, expect that for the next meeting in a month?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. Thank you, appreciate that.
Can I jump us back up to that traffic calming study for a minute?
Yeah, totally.
So,
Totally understand.
for whoever knows, I am on the Tree City
Yes,
board, so I'm wondering, I apologize, I thought I turned it down.
okay.
So I'm wondering what the likelihood is that council would like us to put any trees on. Granted, we have to vet the trees
Mm-hmm.
that would be planted, but on the islands on Hamilton Avenue. Are the islands staying when it gets repaved? They are, right?
They will not be moved. They
So
will just
they're
pave.
staying as they are.
The answer is
Okay. So do we want to put any trees out there?
So I know the funny story that there was miscommunication that they got torn down or whatever by Public Works when Mr. Mosby asked them to be trimmed. So I vote yes that trees be put back where they were before / be put in new places. But I think that would just have to be a conversation with Public Works about, hey, we're spending money on putting these in. We expect them to be kept up and
Well, Marty's supposed to be a member of the Tree City Board too, so he can get advice from them.
Perfect. There we go. Personally, I think that would be awesome.
Anyone? Anyone in the negative column? No? No? All right. So I will have them, the arborist is coming in town this weekend, so I will have him also look at that area and make suggestions for an appropriate tree.
You were awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. So then, is there anything else with the traffic calming study that we need to look at that administration possibly wants us to consider?
When we did ask for the report to be done, one of the things that we were looking at was what could possibly be done to help calm traffic specifically on the west side of Galbraith, west of Simpson.
Okay.
Simpson, sorry about that.
So like where we.
So we're in front of the Clovernook Country Club, the
Oh,
condominiums there,
I'm
right?
sorry, west.
Everything from basically Ameristop all the way down to the country club.
Where I live.
So,
Yeah. Oh, I saw somebody pass somebody in the center lane the other day, and I thought we just talked about that at council. Yeah.
Almost got
Actually,
hit
if-
making a left
How-
turn into
What
my
would be the chances that we could put
dangerous.
any of those, the
Speed
speed
bumps.
humps in the center lane
Speed cushions.
of Galbraith to kind of put a kibosh on that?
you may, so in that place, you may want to consider, instead of the speed bumps, the rumble strips.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Because the rumble strips are there for a couple of purposes. Number one, if somebody's falling asleep behind the wheel and they begin to drift, that will remind them that they need to get back on the other side of the road. Two, and this is why I did want to, when we had this discussion, I did want to have Chief Strand and Chief Fells here so that they would be able to talk about the impact to our emergency vehicles and what
Oh,
that
Chief
would
Fells
mean.
already said that as long as there is a responsible driver, that the speed cushions will not cause injury to the new fire truck. We asked him. I
We did.
remember.
No, I'm
Yeah.
that, right, but what I'm referring to is if we are looking at some kind of a traffic calming specifically on Galbraith, that's what I was referring to. So the speed bumps, those are going to be deployed, and as you said.
Right, but he
he's-
also said, everything in North College Hill is 25, so as long as there's a responsible driver, he assured us that there would not be damage to that vehicle and to any other safety vehicle. So we already got that answer, but okay, when we say rumble strips, so there are two types in my head, and I think they go by two different things. So there's a type on the side of the highway, the skinny ones, but then
Kind
there's
of
a
like
type,
down Hamilton Hill.
right. But
Is
then
that what you
there's-
mean?
I just think,
On-
like,
When you're going south on Hamilton Hill?
You're correct, yes.
Is that what you
Like
mean
the
by
ones on
rumble
the side of
strips?
the highway, the skinny ones on the middle of the cycle highway.
Right, they keep you
They're
out of.
just
So
those
some of
yellow
them are
ones
dug
from-
into the ground and some of them are
they
over
keep
the
you from
ground.
drift into the center of the road where the yellow stripes are. I take
So the,
Hamilton every day.
yeah, the yellow, the double yellow going down Hamilton Hill
Yeah.
has those
Yes.
little dugouts.
But
Is that a
then-
rumble? Thank
The
you.
other thing I'm thinking of is, when you're getting off the highway on, 275, and you're going, like, into the west side of Cincinnati, and you're getting off that exit, and there's
Yeah.
the,
You're
anybody?
going south on 74.
Oh,
Yeah,
275 to
rumbles there.
74.
Yeah, and it slows you down getting,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right, so
Yeah.
which one are you thinking? Are you thinking the big giant ones that are in chunks? Or are you thinking the skinny ones?
No, I was thinking of the ones that Ms. Zorb was referring to, the
skinny
ones that are in the middle of the road, right?
Okay.
Because part of it would be a safety measure, and then the other, and also that would then reduce it would reduce the amount of wear and tear that it might have on some of the emergency vehicles.
So then the other thing I'm thinking then, in addition to that, and I'm kind of changing the subject here, but when you're coming down the hill, out of College Hill, into North College Hill, going down that hill, could there
What
be
street are
this,
you on?
Hamilton,
Okay,
you're coming north, going down that big hill.
okay.
I know I've sped down it before, we'd all be lying if we said we didn't.
Oh,
Are you, Ms. Anderson, are
Maybe
you talking
those
about between Oak Knoll and Sundale?
Yes.
Like maybe those big chunky ones there to be like, hey, maybe you don't know it's going from a 35 to 25, but you better slow down. You know what I'm talking about? Would that be
That
something?
would be good in
That-
the center.
I mean, that certainly, it could be something that, yeah, would be able to be considered. I know that, when we were talking about that wasn't necessarily I don't think
Oh,
that was
is
in
it?
that recommendation, but it is
Alright.
something that, we could ask about. That's probably one that I could quite frankly ask our engineering consultants and just to get.
Oh,
That-
do you mind
that
doing
is
that,
a-
and I'll put it on my notes.
That
so
is a high speeding
I know.
location.
Yeah,
I have
she
a
lives over
question also.
Go ahead.
Will the rumble strips, will they be missing where residents turn into their streets? Like, I live on Lois, so when I'm coming east, I literally get in the divider, the street before, I might have to stop that. I get in the divider, the street before Lois, just west of Lois, and then I slow down and make a left onto Lois. That's where I almost got hit a month ago. They came barreling, from that car wash like a bat out of, by the time I was in mid-turn, that's when I saw them, and I gassed my car, but they won't be located where residents turn into the street on the divider.
Oh, I think so. I think
guess
So
it
are
wouldn't
you,
hurt
so if I may, just to clarify, Ms. Blythe, so are you saying, because you said turn left onto Lois, so I'm assuming that you were traveling eastbound on
Yeah, I'm on
Galbraith.
eastbound,
Okay.
but for some reason, I always get into the divider the street before. Maybe I'm getting in the divider too early, but it's just a habit. So
Right,
probably in
that rumble
between the
strip will break
street.
your habit.
Right, that's what I was thinking, but when I get to Lois, though, there won't be rumbles.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Basically, what there would normally
In
be.
and out.
Right, so normally what there would be is, the street is, and forgive me, I don't remember the exact, but I think the street is like 24 feet wide, or, not 24, yeah, 24 feet wide. And if the street is, for example, 24 feet wide, then that turn lane that you're talking about, that would come all the way out. So the rumble strips would probably stop so that a person could turn, as you pointed out, into that
But in
lane.
between the streets.
Yeah, then you would have the
rumbles
rumble strips,
will be-
correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, makes sense, okay, thank you.
As long as you don't put a big enough swath for someone to think, oh, that's exactly where I'm gonna pass somebody, so they go even faster in that one little section.
That could, however, that's where I do
They're
think that
gonna
the
hit
rumble
that
strips would come
rumble.
into place. Because if they did try to do that, they would have to speed up on the rumble strips, which would then make it much more difficult.
Here you go, yeah, because they're not gonna be able to pass somebody the width of, they can dip into the width of the street, but then they're gonna find themselves on those rumbles
Correct.
going around.
Technically,
Good
the law
idea.
says you should be using a turn signal about 100 feet before you turn, and you should be getting into that turn lane 100 feet before you turn. So there's a way that they could figure that out so
Right.
that the spaces in between have the rumble strips.
Makes sense.
Whereas, within that 100-foot, 150-foot threshold, right before the turns, there, that they could not put those in there. And it would be wide enough that people could go in there to make their legal turn into the side streets like Lois and Marbev and those that way, but to also deter those from using that as a high-speed passing lane or a travel lane.
Right. So the things that we can expect for next meeting is an update on possible big old chunky rumble strips that go across the street all the way from Oak Knoll to Sundale, somewhere in between there. And then the skinnier rumble strips that would go in that middle turning lane on West Galbraith. Updates on those two things for next meeting?
Rumble strips.
And I don't have a say in it, but I would just say that, I like the rumble strips personally better.
The skinny ones?
Yeah,
Okay.
the stuff that we're talking about rather than the speed humps in that location,
Right,
because the speed humps do make it harder to plow,
right.
Yeah, it's Galbraith.
because then they have to remember exactly where those are, and if they forget that, they tear up the new plows that we just spent money on and the stuff that
Yeah.
way. And
Right.
whereas the rumble strips dug into the ground would have the same or similar desired effect without necessarily tearing up some of those equipment.
Well, and that's for like signs like, hey, speed bump ahead, well,
Do we have any, we don't
Right,
have
I
any
get what
speed
you're
humps on Lavoido, do we?
Not right now, we don't, but that is one of the streets that we did plan. We were looking at this particular point, getting the, more the thoroughfares that we have. Thoroughfares, when I just use that, would mean, streets like Labordo, Savannah, Betts.
Kroger.
Well, and that actually run into like another community. That's why we call them the third streets, because you literally go through the city into another
Okay.
municipality.
I'm bad with street names, I'll just drive down them.
so then that also, I guess, would have to do with the speed humps, which we kind of just covered. I personally would like to see the speed cushions that we've already bought out before we think about, designating money to buy more speed humps, in my opinion. And then the police reporting. So here's the thing. I know you have your papers, right? I've been told. Okay. I don't want to cut you off, but I do know that it is 8:45, and that our last council meeting went very long, and that I have papers to grade and put grades in for. So I personally,
Madam Chair, I might be able to save you some time here. What we were doing, as Mr. Chief Sharan is passing these out, he has condensed or actually given a smaller version, and this information is information that so far that he has provided based on some of the feedback that we did get from council and members of the committee. However, he is, of course, available to answer any questions pertaining to that information or receive feedback on other information that you would want to add to the report.
is there anything in here about shootings or how many shootings, how often, where shootings occur, gun activity, that kind of stuff? Is there anything I can look for specifically that information?
So what I did is, on the first page was a yearly report for last year in the major categories, and that's how it prints out, and then it compares it to this year. You're not gonna have a whole lot to compare it to this year because I'm only giving you, at the time, this was only January's report.
Wow,
But
the
it-
murder rate is really down.
Yeah, but it does give you.
Good job, 2 months in, guys.
But it does give you an accurate representation of the numbers that we were dealing with last year for 2021.
So this isn't, because I know last time we talked about this, we asked if you could compare last year's March to this year's March, last year's February to this year's February. Is that something that you said, I know you said you were gonna look into a lot of the things that we asked. Is that something that you were able to do?
They have not been able to give me those and alter those reports like I have asked just yet.
But you did ask.
But I did ask.
Okay, thank you for asking.
Okay, so then the other reports there listed are our January numbers, and what I did was tried to give some things that I thought would be pertinent that council would want to see, to try to get a handle on, a bunch of the different stuff that way. So, for example, the next page of offenses and incidents by address, you can kind of see just an area of where, where we're spending our time and the stuff for January.
What is the West Galbraith Road? I know you said last time that, well, that one address that had a lot was Kroger.
Yes, so that number is gonna be skewed a little bit because our police department address is 1646 West Galbraith. So everybody that comes into our station to
And
report something,
Okay,
in the
that makes
system,
sense.
it lists that as that one. So that's why that number's skewed a little bit,
Right, that makes sense.
okay? But, it gives you a good working order for the rest of the streets and kind of where we're spending our time.
Right,
So you
yeah.
can see that it's spread out just about everywhere.
Hey, my
Okay.
street's not on here. Good job.
Mine isn't either.
Oh,
Mine
look at
is.
us. Oh.
On the next page, that I have in the report, I've got the offenses and incidents for January. So we had 110 offenses or incidents, okay? That can be a little misleading sometimes because that's not how many runs we had.
Right.
That's just the actual offense reports that we have to submit for NIBINs or for the FBI reporting.
What does adulterated food mean?
So that was an interesting case. We had,
Like marijuana cookies or something.
we actually had a phone call from some folks at the school that there was a school kid working at McDonald's posting numerous videos of him altering food at the drive-through.
Shush.
So he was arrested for tampering with the food that he was handing out to kids.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, thanks for taking care of that. That's such a strange way to phrase that. Adulterated food.
My question would be, is this any, the words, I'm looking for the word, not reciprocal, when we go into another city. I
Oh,
can't-
mutual aid.
Thank you. Gosh, why couldn't I think of that word? Is there any mutual aid in this, or is this just North College Hill?
There is some mutual aid. I did not give like I said, when I've previously been here, when I print out the reports, it gives me like 72 pages I can look for.
Right.
Okay, I gave council the condensed version when I was looking at these, I was looking at the ones that we had previously talked about that I thought you would want to see.
No,
So-
I'm just asking in this graph right here, these statistics,
Offensive and
is this just North College Hill?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood you.
More palatable.
Yes.
Thank you.
So then, again, back to my original question. I don't see anything in here like gun violence, shootings, and I know that one of your officers, when they came to speak to us on Tuesday, had said something about, this is how many shootings we've just had this year, but I don't see that anywhere in here.
Okay, so it's kind of tied in several different places. If you're looking at the offense and incidents page, which would be the front sheet of the second page,
Right.
you'll see that we had improperly discharging a firearm at or into a habitation.
Oh, I see, improperly discharging and then probably handling
And then-
firearms, right?
Correct. Okay, so what that is when you look at the offense or the incidents,
Having weapons while under
yes,
discharge.
we have to send it, we call it, in layman's terms, and when we're talking, we call it a shooting.
Right.
But in the terms that we have to put in for an actual offense that gets reported to the FBI statistics, we have to put it in one of those categories as either an improperly discharging a firearm in the city limits, if you would, where they didn't actually hit anybody, right? Or as a felonious assault or an aggravated assault where they discharged the firearm and they actually hit somebody. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yes, yeah.
So, so when you look at that, that's kind of where we use the layman terms and we use simple terms that way to say, yes, we had this number of shootings, these are the number of shootings that we responded to.
Right.
But when we have to give the NIBINs or the FBI reporting data,
Okay.
we have to put it in those specific categories, because that's the way that they track it.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question,
Please do.
and it's almost comical, but it's down here. On all arrests by reasons, how do you get arrested for failure to maintain bingo records? That is so interesting. It's page 17 at the bottom
That's 19 on
on
mine.
all arrest.
19. Oh, hers is a different page. She's on a different page.
That is
That's
so,
also
I'm
on
just
page
like
19.
curious. Failure to maintain bingo records.
You're
It's
looking-
on both.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Imagine a
It's on
little old
17 and
lady
19.
Or something, or, that's kinda interesting.
It is, and I'll be honest, I need to look into that one, because I think that was a typo, and what they put into the category, because you have those drop-down boxes. But there are such things as, there's all kinds of sections in there about bingo records and gambling and all kinds of other things in the Ohio Revised Code.
Like
Same
somebody
Mark and
called the
Mary and their
police,
Monte
I'm like,
Carlo
I've
night."
won this game 3 times
Yeah.
and you're cheating me out of my money, I'm calling the police. So the police
I-
have to go down to the church.
I know that last time we talked
Failure to maintain
about this,
bingo
you said that
records.
you would possibly put together like a key of like,
That is so
hey, this
funny.
says 4510.11, and nobody knows what that means.
Right.
Or like saying well, you said the thing about your police station and how many stuff there is there and Kroger. Is that something that you guys were able to put together, and I'm just not seeing it here? Is it something that you've looked into?
So I looked into it. Anything that I have asked them to do, they've kind of given me a workaround to do some of those, but they haven't been able to or willing so far
But is
to-
that something that you could put together?
to change the reports.
Right. Is that something
Um,
that you could put together of like, oh, hey, I'm the police chief, here's some clarification in case you need it on this page, or like, you know. Kind of
Yeah.
like a police chief newsletter.
Right,
go along
and
with
so what I was looking at, and I guess the where I've always been at is I am open to feedback, and I want this to be a living document
Mhm.
that I send off every month,
Yeah.
that I give to council, and that council can look at it and kind of look at those things and do that.
That'd be
The
awesome.
problem that we've had is just based on timing, I've come to council and we went over it where we had 72 pages
Yep.
to go over.
I still have it
And
all
we,
in my desk.
yeah, and we haven't gotten back to it to say, what is it that I can help you? Because it can almost be overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of took the liberty, and I hope that you don't mind, I kind of took the
Oh,
liberty to
I
pick
appreciate it.
out a few of the pages that I thought were really pertinent. I can make all kinds of other reports,
Mm-hmm.
and I think for the sake of time, if that's okay, because you already mentioned that
Oh, yeah.
you got papers to grade and the other stuff,
Oh, yeah.
feel free to send me an email with the stuff that you would like, and
Oh,
I don't mind doing that at all. I'm here to do that. I'm just a keeper of the records.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mind doing that one bit. I just put these together because when I looked at the 72 pages,
Oh, yeah.
I thought that these were the most pertinent for some of the things that you were looking at.
No, I completely agree that like Ms. Dixie said,
So for
much
ex-
more palatable.
So
But
for example, from the traffic accidents to the traffic citations, I thought that council would want to look at those to see where the officers, how many citations they're writing, where the officers are,
yes,
and that is related to the traffic accidents and the things that we're looking at. I also kind of thought that while you were discussing, and I'm sorry about the timing, but I thought while we were discussing and constantly discussing traffic calming surveys,
Yeah.
and we were discussing traffic concerns that way, that those numbers on a routine basis would be able to help you, looking at where the auto accidents occurs, where the citations are occurring, where we're having those issues, if that makes sense.
no, that's definitely helpful.
Chief
Okay?
Sharon, can you help me understand something?
Yes.
So if I look at page 1, which says offenses and incidents, and then I look at page 18, and at the bottom graph of the two, and it says offense arrests by reason.
Okay.
So I compare the two, in one of them, the line improperly handling firearms in a motor vehicle is in both of them, but one of them has a quantity of 2 and the other one has a quantity of 5. Can you help me understand what those differences, how that happens?
So, one is in the offenses and incidents, okay? are, when they go in to type in a report, they have to classify it as an offense or an incident, and the non-criminal, meaning it happened and that's where we went, okay? So that's the number of reports that they had for that, okay? And the other one, it talks about, how many arrests were potentially made for that. Because it's arrest by, or offense arrest by reason. So, for example, and the way I'm reading that for January, is we had several traffic stops that was applicable. But if you have one traffic stop, for example, that you have 3 people in the car, and there's 2 guns in the car or 3 guns in the car, it will only be listed as 1 incident, but there is potentially 3 arrests for the guns in there. And I do know that in January that one of the officers did have an arrest where they had 3 people in the car, and they did end up arresting all 3 because there was 2 guns in the car, and they were all loaded, and nobody was legally allowed to own or carry the firearms, and all 3 were in proximity to that.
But this
So-
is offenses and incidents, so would it just really be incidences on page 1, and then on page 8, it's actually the offense? Is that what you're basically saying?
I'm sorry, I was confused.
So you're saying that there might have been an incident where there were 2 times when this happened, right? But there were technically 5 offenses of it because, not offenses of it, because there were 5 arrests.
Yes, so there was 5 arrests for that,
Right,
but I
there
know
were
for, yeah.
2 times. So
yeah.
then, really where it says on page 1, offenses and incidents, it's really just, those are the incidences, aren't the.
It's basically the car versus the people.
Right.
Yeah, it's the number of times on the offenses and incidents, it's the number of times they put it into that as a report.
But then this is
Well,
how
does that
many
make sense?
people actually
Right.
died.
Right, the
And
car
the
stop
arrested
would be the
People,
incident.
this is
The car
The-
stop
the
would be the
arrest is-
incident, and then the arrests would be the total arrests in there. So if there were 3 people in the car,
Yeah.
there would be 3 arrests.
But it's still.
It's 1 incident, though.
Yes, but it's still the same, like, so you have the car is but it's still the same. You have to
Right.
classify what offense it fell
Right.
under, even though the arrest,
Right.
yeah.
I gotta know.
And so that's where it can be a little tricky, and you kinda have to look at it.
Right. for my
But
critical
that's where
lens.
those numbers would be skewed a little bit, when you have 2 incidents where they made traffic stops and they arrested people on the traffic stops
Right.
for the guns, but you have 5 arrests, because I know, like I said, in January, on one of those, we had 3. They had 3 arrests on that one stop.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that.
That's
I-
good.
I couldn't,
Fathom it, yeah.
I couldn't figure, Thank you.
I think that this is really nice. I appreciate it. I will email you with my questions.
once again, it's all about Marjorie.
I don't wanna stop anybody else, but
The only thing I would clarify, just for the sake of argument, so for your looking at it,
yeah.
the daily activities, the things you'll see on the last 2 pages, and why some of those are different, okay? So, if, from the officer's perspective, if I get called to something and it's not necessarily a criminal offense that has to be reported into the NIBINs, we don't classify it as an offense, but it's still something that we did. It's still a call for service, so it enters into the daily activity, and that's why they're 2 different.
Is that why it's claimed as on duty? Are those the things that are on duty?
So, for example, they have to test and spark test the tasers every day to make sure they're working.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to log on and say that that's when they're on duty, and that they spark test the tasers, and they signed out all of the equipment that they signed out. So that's why the on duty, if you would, is that way. And rather than making that an offense report, yes, that's why that goes into the daily activities or the things.
So I recently was talking to some of my friends who I still work with from Skyline, and they said that they recently had to press their panic alarm and that you guys were really responsive. So thank you for that, for protecting my friends. I appreciate that a lot, but I saw panic alarm was on one of those. So that makes me feel good that those are in use and that you guys are responsive to them.
What's, COTP, assist COTP?
Orange Township.
Oh, duh.
Oh, it's like, are any others on here? Oh, assist SPTP, is that a Springfield or not?
That's Springfield.
That's Springfield, okay. Oh, and I see shots fired on here, so is that the only spot that would be considered like gun related?
So that's the problem with the shots fired and the daily activities, because
Right.
that means that we got a call for shots fired.
But-
They responded, but they didn't find anything that was actually hit. They found no evidence of anything else.
Right,
So it went into the daily activity because there wasn't enough there
right.
to put it into as an actual offense report to be reported to
So
the state.
these things are not, these have no overlap with the offense report. They are two separate bubbles.
Correct.
Gotcha. Oh, and assist Mount Healthy, that's way up at the top. And that, like, even if there was an offense that went in when we assisted Mount Healthy, because it's Mount Healthy, we wouldn't put it in, so
We
like,
would have
there
put it
could
in as a
be-
daily activity.
Right,
Because we don't own that offense report, if that makes sense.
right, no, I get you.
And since we have to report those for our crime statistics, we don't want to report Mount Healthy's crime statistics as our own to
Right,
the
right.
state and say,
Yeah,
Oh, heck yeah.
This is much better.
mhm. Sorry we couldn't put in words what we wanted, but this is.
Look at all the parking complaints. Holy moly.
Where's that?
There's 32.
Junk,
Yeah.
junk cars.
Fourth one from the top.
Oh,
Mm,
oh,
It's on next door too.
well, and that's part of
Junk-
what you were
junk
saying earlier about how it
cars.
needs to be clarified. We will get that clarified, and you will be able to give out all
Junk
the tickets you dream of for those.
Junk
so,
cars.
in my
Bring a
vision-
hook.
In my vision, that's what I would like is, I would like to be able to provide this, which I think is more palatable and gives the information. And then if you have anything outside of that, please, please let us know so that I can try, that I could try to provide that.
The only thing that I could foresee might be useful, is just the comparison. I see you have the comparison from, what page should I
The
be?
whole
Here it is.
year,
Yeah.
2021.
It's, the 2021,
to just up to now.
2022, so like, maybe,
Add 2020.
no, I wasn't gonna say that, I was gonna say, like, where we are to date, year to date.
We,
So like, for example.
I think you were out of the room, but I already asked for that. He
Oh,
said he
okay.
couldn't do it.
Oh, you could not.
I
So
think,
what I could do is I can compare it to, so like on the first page, I could compare it like year 2021 to this year. And it would kind of do a year to date that way, so we could also compare to last year, if that makes sense. So this first page where it's comparing 2021's numbers to January, right? I could do that over and over again, so you would see pretty much a current year to date compared to last year's, and I could do that.
Cause I'd
Right.
like to see, this is this portion for me, what I'm talking about, and the reason I don't want you to think I'm asking amiss. I wanna kinda help validate what I'm thinking. I'm actually not in charge of the mayor's newsletter, but it would be really nice to start, pointing out times where we've seen significant crime drop, and in certain areas in our newsletter.
Yeah.
Especially if we're gonna disperse that. Remember, we talked about in one of the other committees to, the landlords, like that little QR code and stuff.
Welcome
If
back.
they were, yeah, if they were seeing like, wow, look at that, that only helps promote our policing.
oh yeah.
It's just, it overall moves us forward in
I agree.
terms of, helping our neighborhood. And so if we can kind of collectively earmark the data to kind of point in that direction. So that would be my, interest in seeing that. If you could provide that, hopefully the numbers trend down.
And I look forward to doing that. The only reason I haven't done that, thus far is because in the beginning of 2021 is when we went to this new RMS system. So when they transferred everything over, I have the reports, but it's not put in the same, because it's a different system. I'm not getting the same results when I put in 2020 comparing it to 2021, if that makes sense.
So
Because-
what I think I just heard is you don't have this information for 2020.
Correct.
Okay.
And so.
Because
now
when
that-
I look at this doesn't show me any type of pattern. I got nothing to go on here. It's,
And so that top report is what I'm really looking forward to, is now that I have 1 year of data and I have access to be able to do that moving forward. I plan on being able to share that and be able to use that to our advantage, because now that we have that data to use, that we can share that appropriately.
makes sense.
I'm not gonna close that, I do have to go.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Thank you for changing the clock.
Yes.
Yes.
That makes, yeah, that's wonderful.
I just wanna, all right, we have at least half of the members. I just wanted to make sure if you were
So
leaving, we
I
were.
don't have the notes up until that point.
You're fine, you're fine.
Okay, thank you.
With that being said though, I mean, we pretty much got through everything, unless there's anything on new business. All the action items, I think, are for administration's use, so I'll let you make your own action item list. Any new business before we head out?
I do not.
All right, then I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn at 9:09. Thank you, Chief, for coming, and Mr. Mosby for helping out. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Yes, thank you
you.
both.
Thank you.